Hello, welcome back to Literary Ladies, episode 3.
Whoop, whoop.
So I've been posting all over Instagram, and we announced it last time that the book we read was The Guest List by Lucy Foley, however you pronounce it, yes. So that's the book we're going to be discussing today. As usual, we have a bunch of questions that we've kind of thought about prior. We haven't thought about prior before, but this time we thought about prior.
Trying to be
So
organized.
what?
Trying to be organized over
Yeah,
here.
exactly. So we're going to go through those, and then we have the usual questions we talk about, and we're adding a new question suggested by KP, which is, who would we cast in a movie to play these characters? So if you want to hear the answer to that, listen till the end.
Listen to the whole thing.
Listen to this whole thing. Okay. So let's start with our first question. When you read a murder mystery, do you try to solve the mystery as you read the story?
So I don't usually try to solve the mystery because I feel like they're trying to make you think that it's a few people until the end, and then it reveals that it's not anyone you thought it was. So I just read as I go and I don't try to solve it along the way. What about you?
Yeah, I think that maybe just subconsciously or unconsciously, I'll think about it, but most of the time, like you said, the author's trying to like throw you off, or even, I mean, sometimes they give you little hints to kind of push you in the right direction. But with this book especially, I felt like that was not the case at all. Like I had no clue who it was, like the entire time. And then like I did have suspicions about who was going to be dead. Like I thought it was going to be Olivia, which she kind of tricked us with that because of her like going into the ocean and stuff. But yeah, I definitely just had suspicions about who was gonna like be dead. I think the only time I really thought about someone being the killer was when they found like Jules's crown out in the bog or whatever, and I was like, oh, like she killed Will after she found out what he did with Olivia and all that stuff. But that was the only one I really thought, and that was towards the very end of the book. So
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot going on. So it was, if you tried to solve it, it would have been hard
you
too.
would have been wrong.
You would have been wrong the whole time.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, we can jump into our next one.
Okay.
So first of all, how do we pronounce the innkeeper's name?
Aoife.
Aoife.
Yes.
That
Oh,
is.
I forget because you didn't listen. You read the book.
Oh,
I listened to it. Yeah, yeah.
I was pronouncing it like Aof.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is not right. Aoife.
Yeah, I even wrote like a little note to myself because I didn't want to forget how to say it. But yeah, it's Aoife.
Aoife. Okay. So next question. We read the perspective of Aoife, Hannah, Jules, Jono, Olivia, and a little bit of Will. It also jumps back and forth between the present and the events leading up to the murder. What do you think about reading from all these different perspectives? What characters did you engage with the most, and who did you engage with the least?
So I can't really decide if I liked this many perspectives in a book because it was definitely more than I've ever had in a book before. Because usually it'll be at the most like 3, maybe 4 people. Usually it's
Right.
like 2, I would say. But this one had a lot, even like you said, but just character perspectives, but then like the entire night of the wedding it would talk about. So I said like it was important to tell the stories of like Will, Jono, Jules, and Olivia, but I feel like we didn't really need Hannah's point of view. I love Hannah's story, and I honestly wish it was like its own separate book because they had this whole other dynamic going on. And like I just feel like her and her husband's story, like yeah, they like knew them, but there wasn't a whole lot going on other than the sister thing with her, which I'm going to talk about this later, but I really didn't even feel like that point was presented very clearly. I was kind of confused
Yeah.
about what they were talking about until these questions, because it like directly says like, oh, this is what happened to her sister. How do you feel about this?
Yeah.
But when I was reading the book, I didn't really, it wasn't very like clear that that's what they were trying to say.
Right.
And I also said I didn't think we needed Aoife's point of view, because hers could have just been like incorporated into the other people's, like when they went and talked to her about something for the wedding. I don't necessarily think that she needed her this whole like chapter for herself, you know?
Yeah. So I would agree. I liked Hannah, Aoife, and Olivia's point of views because I felt like it was like the most mysterious. Like the whole time I was like, what's going on and like what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Especially like Olivia. I was like, what the hell is going on with this
Yeah.
girl? She's going through it. So those three, I liked Aoife's perspective because I liked hearing about someone who actually like lived on the island and like had to stay there day to day instead of just
Mm-hmm.
visiting for a night. I mean, Jules and Jonna were definitely needed, but I thought that their point of view was like so whiny. Like
Mm-hmm.
they were always like complaining. And I'm like, listen, you're like on this island in Ireland, like living your best life. Like just shut up and stop like complaining about your lives. Especially
Yeah.
because I'm like, you're getting married. Like, don't like complain about everything that's happening and like the fact that your family like did this and
Mm-hmm.
Will did this, and it was a lot. I was like, I don't know
Yeah, I
about.
could even see where they didn't really need Jules's point of view either, you
Yeah,
know? I mean, besides the fact that she was one of the main characters, but
yeah.
she didn't really add a whole lot, you know?
No, she did not.
As far as like who I engaged with the most, I put Hannah and Olivia. And I said Olivia mostly because she had this whole story, like she was pretty much involved in everything. Like she was involved with Will at the party where him and Jules met. Like she had that thing where Will was introduced to the family. She had this whole other thing that was going on at school that she hadn't told anyone about. So she just had a lot going. I think she had more going on. Her and Hannah, because Hannah had the whole like alcoholic thing with her husband. um, they had more going on than I think everyone else did.
Which I wish they would have gotten into that more about Hannah's husband's alcoholism,
Hmm.
because the whole time she was hinting that he was like a severe alcoholic, but they never explained it, so it was
Yeah,
confusing.
yeah, I agree. You're like, was he? Was he not?
Like, did he do something really bad when he was drinking one time?
Yeah, it seemed like he would get like angry or something. I don't know. It's very like subtle, just sprinkled in there. Okay.
Sprinkled in there.
So the next one, let's first start with Jules. Why was she so eager to marry Will despite not knowing him for very long? Why did you think she chose to ignore the letter that said not to marry him?
Okay, so this was the part that was so confusing to me because in the book, it made it seem like she was only with him for like a few months before the wedding.
Hmm.
And then when she was talking to her dad right before they walked down the aisle, he mentioned something like, haven't you been with him for 2 years? So I was like, what? 2 years? I'm like, I thought she was only with him for like a couple months. So that was super confusing to me. So I
Were
don't
they
know.
only engaged for a couple months? Or I honestly don't know.
Maybe. I don't
But no,
know.
I remember what you're talking about though, because when Hannah and her husband were talking about it, they said that it was only like 6 months or something like that.
Yeah. So that part of it, I feel like they could have cleared up a little bit. But I think that she just wanted like this perfect life, and Will
Hmm.
was the final puzzle piece to that.
Yeah, I put also that he like fit into her lifestyle well, but I think she also just saw him as this like mysterious person that was different than all the other people she had been with before. And that was because he had a whole lot of stuff going on himself.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. On to the next. So the next question is, we have Olivia who is depressed and pretty haunted. When she's describing Stephen and what happened to her, did you suspect that it was Will, or were you surprised at that reveal? Do you think that she'll ever tell Jules what really happened with him?
So I said I was surprised about the reveal because I felt like those parts of the book happened so far apart from each other, or maybe it's just because it took me a long time to read it. I don't know. But I had almost completely forgot everything that was said about what happened with Olivia in that night with the guy she met on, it was like a dating app or something, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember what they're talking about now, but it was kind of too far spaced for me to have that like, oh my gosh reaction. Um, but I think that she probably told her like that same night that they found him dead.
Yeah. So I will say I was like shook when I found out Stephen was Will. And but it all made sense because he was explaining how he met Jules at that party after his friend had left and he was
Mhm.
there by himself. And I was like, oh, this all makes sense because your friend was Olivia and she went home.
Right.
And like that was crazy to me. And it makes me think like, did he know that that was Olivia's sister?
Mhm.
Or like was it just random that he met her there?
Right.
But that was crazy, and I agree with you. I think once Will was dead, she opened up to Jules about it because what would she have left?
Yeah,
Like mom can't
exactly.
provide anything.
I don't think that he knew that it was her sister at the party because remember he like they said he was like really shocked when he came in, or Olivia like saw the shock on his face when he came to their house before they were supposed to go out to lunch together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it was just a coincidence that it
Mhm.
was her sister.
Crazy. So the next question, what did you think about Hannah's storyline? She's horrified to find out that Charlie and Jules slept together after the birth of their child. Do you think Hannah will leave Charlie or will they stay together?
So I feel like there was such a big connection between Jules and Charlie in the book, and Hannah, I felt really bad for Hannah
Hmm.
because she was there as his date, but the whole time it was like so awkward and he wasn't like even checking in with her to see how she was.
Hmm.
And I just think about like going to weddings and like going with someone who's in the wedding party and then you're just their date. Like that's so awkward for you because you don't
Hmm.
know anyone. You just have to like try to meet people. So you would think he would come back and try to be like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And he never did.
Yep.
So that was so sad. And then I think that they tried to work it out after the wedding, but I don't think it worked out for them.
Yeah, this is why I really liked Hannah because, and why I think she should have had like her own book because they had so much going on. And I said, I feel like she'll realize, or she realized that he's kind of falling back into those old habits of drinking and finding out that he had cheated after they had their kid, like probably was the nail in the coffin. And him and Jules did have such a strong connection that I said they probably ended up back together like after Will died and
Hmm.
all that's settled.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked the connection though that she had to Olivia. Like I felt like that was like so like special, this like friendship that they formed in the book.
I agree. So you can even see where if they had another one where that would be like a conflict because Olivia really likes Hannah, but then Hannah and her husband like had all this going on, and if then the husband tried to get with Olivia's sister, then it would be a big mess.
Big mess.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is Jono is distraught when he finds out that Will sabotaged his chance of being on the show. Let's talk about the reveal, how the reveal caused him to finally confront Will about their cover up.
Okay, so I really liked that story in this book, like about how he sabotaged him getting on this show that was his entire idea.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like his life was in so many like shambles since that like kid died when they were in school, and then he had this opportunity finally to like do something with his life, and then that just got taken away from him. So yeah, and then to just figure out like, oh, this was the person that was supposed to be your best friend and they did this to you, like that's terrible.
Yeah. I think that Will like had it mapped in his head, the perfect like wedding, and then when Jules ran into Piers and invited him to the wedding, it was like, oh shit, he's gonna run into Jono and like
Mhm.
something could happen. And then he did run into Jono and something happened.
Yep.
And I think that Jono has been like living in Will's shadow his whole life and was like trying to be as good of a person as Will is a good person. And it just was really awkward to me when he like had to ask Will to be his best man.
Hmm.
Like that made me so uncomfortable. I was like, this is not like a friendship when you have to
Right.
ask someone to be in their wedding.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that was really awkward. That entire like lunch that they had together or whatever.
yeah. I was like, I think this was like a long time coming that like he needs to confront Will about all the stuff that's going on.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question. A fellow classmate named Darcy at the boarding school died after Will and Jono tied him up and left him behind with no way to escape. Jono is traumatized and feels guilty, while Will takes no responsibility and tries to say it was an accident. Let's talk about our thoughts as we read this. What does this say about Will, how he has always thought he was going to get away with everything?
Okay. So I think Will is a legit psychopath. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I think he is. And because he was so conditioned at a young age, like, never to take any responsibility for his actions. And if you look back on the book, a lot of the guys, like, not even Jono, the rest of the guys, make so many comments about like him never having to play survivor
Hmm.
and him never getting in trouble for anything. Like I feel like they were all very resentful to him
Hmm.
for that. And I think that like Jono actually had a soul and like couldn't deal with like having that secret anymore.
Yeah. So I was thinking like a lot of Will's actions, kind of like you said, just reflected his upbringing. Like when we were introduced to his father, he was this like hard ass that didn't appreciate anything. And so you can see why he, stole the test stuff when he was at the boarding school, and um, just to be as good as like kind of live up to this expectation that his family had for him, right?
Yeah.
And just like doing all of this stuff to look superior like his entire life, which is why he wanted that TV show all to himself instead of like letting Jono be in on it. And I said, I think because of his past, he really has no sense of consequences of his actions, as opposed to Jono, who has like had this weight of this boy's death like on him since it happened, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure. That I think that most people would react like Jono, where they can't like deal with it anymore, and
Right.
especially like the the way that Darcy died is like so horrific that he like just got taken out to sea, tied up, and
Hmm.
even when he confronts Will at the end saying like, did you know it was going to be like high tide and did you know that was going to happen, like we'll never know, but I think he did
Yeah.
because he didn't want to get caught for stealing those papers.
Yep.
Psychopath, like legit psychopath. I was reading it and I was so upset. I was like, I hate this character. I want to kill him,
he
but
was he was terrible.
someone beat me to it.
Oh my gosh. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Not that we haven't been talking about it the whole time, but
Yeah. All right. Um, let's see. I feel like I only copied half of this question. Can you read this one? Because I think I only have half of it.
yeah, that's fine. It says, but that's not the only person Will harmed. He did an act of revenge porn on Hannah's sister, and she eventually killed herself. Let's talk about this reveal.
So I like kind of forgot about Hannah's sister storyline a little bit. It was brought up like a tiny bit, but then and like at the beginning when they said, "Oh, we know someone that went to that college,"
Hmm.
I like put two and two together at the end that it was her sister, but and that's so random. Like, what are the chances that he's gonna meet Hannah's sister at this college
Right.
and meet her and then do revenge porn and then she kills herself? That I thought that was kind of like a, a crazy storyline a little bit.
Like a little, and it wasn't like explained well. It wasn't clear. I kind of talked about this earlier. Like, I just felt like, yeah, it wasn't really necessary to the overall story.
Yeah.
Other than like, hey, maybe he was doing the same thing to Olivia or planned on doing the same thing, you know?
Yeah. He was not a good guy
Nope.
at all. We don't like him.
Nope.
All right. Did you think it was interesting that Will was so involved with all those horrible actions that impacted so many of the characters? Or do you think it was a little much?
I was just reading through what I said. I said I definitely think it was necessary for all this stuff to show how terrible of a person he was, and I said that then you weren't as distraught at the end when he was murdered because he was so terrible.
Literally, like, I was not distraught at all at the end. I was like, okay, go on with your bad self.
Oh my gosh.
I did not care. The way that he impacted everyone on that island and he did something bad to everyone, I felt like it was that like movie. Remember the Murder on the Orient Express, where they were like all working together to kill the guy, except not everyone was working together.
I don't think I've seen that, but
Oh, spoiler alert! Don't watch it now.
okay.
But I just feel like everyone there had a reason to kill him.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so next question. What did you think about the reveal that Aoife is the sister of Darcy? What did you think about her reasons for having their wedding at the island? Were you surprised that she ends up being the one to murder Will?
So at that part, like I died because I was not expecting her to have any sort of storyline that had to do with any of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So when that was revealed, I was shook. And then when it was revealed that, um, what's his name? Teddy, her husband, was the guy that went to school with all of them and was the one
Mm-hmm.
that was there that night when they stole Darcy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so crazy. And I just feel like she had never intended on him ever leaving the island. Like she said she was going to just talk to him, but
Mm-hmm.
I think she was planning on killing him the whole time.
Yeah, I think that it was really cool. Like it was completely unexpected that she was the like even related to him and was the murderer. And the only thing I kind of commented on was I wish that there was more, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because maybe I just had a lapse in memory, but I feel like the most they really talked about the island was just her family vacationing there when they were younger. So but then there was all these stories about the island being haunted and stuff. So I feel like they should have talked more about the island in the book and maybe like elaborated a little bit more like why she had this big connection to it because it kind of seemed like her story was more entwined with the island than it was made out to be. Like I thought maybe someone in her family had died um on the island or because it wasn't on the island, right? That Darcy died.
It wasn't on the island, but I think wasn't Darcy buried on the island?
Oh, he might. Oh, yeah, he could have been.
Yeah. So I think she wanted to be there because that's where he was buried. And I think
Okay.
she was so protective of people going into the cemetery
Yeah.
part because she didn't want them to see the stone head.
Oh, okay. The headstone.
Headstone? What?
Not Stonehenge. Oh my gosh.
Like Stonehenge? Oh, that's not right.
Oh man. Okay, that makes more sense then. I don't think I realized that, but that makes more sense.
Okay, so let's talk about Jono taking the blame for Will's murder despite being innocent. Do you think the truth will ever come out about Aoife?
No, I don't think so. He was like found with this knife covered in blood and I just don't think, and he was like drunk, or he was pretending to be drunk. So everyone thought that he was like super drunk. So he kind of did it to himself. Um, and this is so funny because I wrote that Aoife's husband's name was Peter, but you're totally right. I'm pretty sure it was Teddy.
There was a groomsman named Peter though.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I said I don't think anyone even realized that Teddy was this person that they went to school with back then. So I think they have no idea that there's any connection
Yeah.
with them.
I think that Jono had felt very guilty his whole life, and this was like him paying the price for Darcy's death by
Mhm.
taking on the blame of Will's death.
Yep, that's a very good way to put that.
Yeah.
Okay, so were you satisfied by the end?
I was. I think that justice was served for everyone. And I think that after the end of it, they're all going to be like closer as people. Well, maybe not Hannah and her husband, but like I think that Olivia and Jules are going to like be a lot closer,
Mhm.
and everything can come out into the open about
Yeah.
it.
So now, because now they have this like whole connection, Olivia and Jules, like about this story that happened and now the death of Will. So yeah, I agree. They're going to be much closer. And I said that I just kept it short and sweet. I said the end was the best part. I felt like the end of the book was really the most interesting part of the book, like with the reveals and stuff. I felt like the other part of the book, and it took me way longer to read this than it has the other one. So I feel like it dragged on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the end was definitely good. I liked it.
Yeah. I was hooked like the whole time, but I think the beginning was like really slow. I was waiting for something big to happen, and a
Yeah.
lot of things happened. A lot of things
A
happened.
lot of things did happen. Okay, so that's the end of the kind of pre-written questions, and then we have our questions that we like to do. So the first one we can do is, what do the characters look like, or what do they look like in your head as you're going through this book?
So, should we just go one by one so we can start with Will?
That's fine. I will tell you, I only have Will, Hannah, and the sisters. So if you have comments on the other people, that's fine. I just only did those four.
Okay, that's fine. So Will, I said he was like muscular, tall, brunette, really good smile, like just a handsome fella.
Hmm. Yeah, I said that he's probably like dark haired and tan and like ruggedly handsome, but in a way that he still looks like $1,000.
Not a million, just a thousand bucks.
He's just worth 1,000.
That's perfect. For Jules, I said blonde, tall, very beautiful, thin. I mean, I could not get a great idea of Jules in my head.
You know what's funny? So when I answered this question before I answered who I would cast them as, and I casted them both as blonde actresses, but my description, I put Jules and Olivia were long, brunette haired, thin and pale women who dressed in like perfect champagne colored silk. Like,
Hmm,
I kind of just like paired them together. And it's so funny because I definitely see them as blonde now, but when I originally thought about it, I put them as brunette.
love it. So you did Hannah and Olivia too?
No, I did. Oh, yeah, yeah. So I just said Olivia with Jules because I kind of put them together
Oh,
being
yeah.
sisters.
So I put Olivia as a brunette, tall, skinny, not kind of like frail looking because
Hmm.
they like mentioned how skinny she was. Um, so yeah,
Okay. And then the last one I did is Hannah, and I said she seemed more like an average, normal built woman with curves and like a mom's body. Like,
yeah. I said short, long brunette hair, pale skin. So
Okay, so this part was super fun. I'm very glad you said to do them like who we would cast in the movie because I put a lot of thought into it. I was like Googling people, and I actually tried to do a lot of like Irish actors since this was based in
oh, I
Ireland.
did not do that. I
I didn't.
did American.
It's so funny because I don't have any redheads, which, a lot of like Irish people are redheads, like Caitlin, our friend is Irish and she has red hair. Shout out to Caitlin. Hey,
Hey.
thanks for listening. But yeah, none of the people I ended up picking were redheaded, but it's fine.
All right, so should we start with Will?
That's fine. And I want to pull up Google too so I can Google who you said. I hope we have some of the same because I think that would be fun.
I didn't do any Irish actors.
Okay,
I did
that's fine.
one British actress,
Okay.
and then a bunch of American people.
Okay. Who did you put for Will?
So Will, literally the entire book, I was picturing him in my head as the actor Armie Hammer from The Social Network. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know who he is. He hasn't been in like a ton, but I don't know why I could not get that image out of my head of him.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Who did you put for
I
Will?
put Jamie Dornan.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
That is really good. And that makes sense because isn't he Irish?
Yeah, I think he was one of the ones that I had. But yeah, I put Jamie Dornan.
Oh, and he's so attractive. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Okay, so then let's do Jules. Who'd you put for Jules?
I put Blake Lively for Jules.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I put Margot Robbie.
Oh, I can see that too.
Mm-hmm.
They can fight for that role. See who.
Okay, see who wins. Okay, so then who'd you put for Olivia?
I put Lily Collins.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can picture her as that. I was like, wait, who's Lily Collins? Emily in Paris. Hey.
Hey.
I am gonna butcher this name and I'm so sorry because I think I know how to pronounce it, but I don't want to get it wrong. I put two people. I think it's Saoirse Ronan.
Oh yes, I love her.
And then I also put Imogen Poots because I thought they could. Imogen Poots was in that one. You know who she is?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I put either of them, but I put the other one first.
I love that. I think those both are good
Yeah.
people. And then who did you put for Hannah?
For Hannah, I put Haley Atwell.
Who is Haley Atwell?
I actually don't know her either, but when I just saw her picture, I was like, oh yeah, she would be good.
Okay, I can see it.
Who did you put?
I put Emilia Clarke.
Okay, yeah.
Games.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hunger Games. Game of Thrones. Oh my gosh, who am I? That can be the caption of this episode. Emilia Clarke from Hunger Games.
Okay, and then what is Hannah's husband's name? Was it Charlie?
Charlie.
Okay, that's what I thought. I put Chris O'Dowd for him.
Who's that? Chris.
He was the police officer in Bridesmaids.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
I did not put someone for Charlie. Sorry.
That's fine. I just saw him and I was like, he's Charlie.
But I did do Effa and Jono, if you did them.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah. So for Jono, I said Dave Franco.
Okay. Yours are all a little younger. Like I think I put older people.
Yeah.
Like younger people. I put Michael Fassbender.
Okay.
X-Men, yeah.
Yeah. And then for Effa, I put that actress, Linda Cardellini. She's in that show Dead to Me.
Oh, she's really good. I can see that. I put Ruth Negga.
Ruth Negga. How do you pronounce that, or how do you spell that last name?
Negga.
Okay, I can see it. Oh my gosh, love it.
She's like small, petite, like could kill a man with her bare hands. Just kidding. Okay, so I already saw your rating because you put it.
Well, wait, was that my true rating?
Okay, tell me what your true rating is out of 5 stars.
So now that I think about it, I did post on my Instagram account that it was a 4.5 out of 5, but I would knock it down to maybe like a 4.2 because thinking about it, I think there's a lot of parts of the book that don't come together and don't make sense.
Okay, yeah. This was like one of my worst rated ones. It's not, I didn't rate it like, I gave it a 3.2 out of 5. So it's still like decent. Like I still enjoyed the book and I thought it was good. But
Yeah.
I definitely think like some of the other ones were more suspenseful through the entire book. Like this one kind of just came to a quick wrap up at the end, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
But I still thought it was good. Definitely would recommend giving it a read. It was interesting. And if you listen to Audible, it's great because I think they had a bunch of different people play the different characters and they all have the Irish accents. So it's like really nice to listen to.
I like that.
Yeah. So for our next book, we are going to be doing You Know Me Well by Nina LaCour and David Levithan. And this is an LGBT romance. It seems like it's going to be pretty short. I think on my Audible it says like 6 hours or something. I don't know how many pages it is, but we'll see how that goes.
We're excited.
So we decided not to do another mystery thriller this time since we've done kind of 3 in a row. So
Yeah.
and we already have
couple of books are going to be a little different.
Yeah, that's true. Because we already have planned what the next book is going to be, but we'll wait to announce that until our next episode. So follow us on our Instagram. It's Literary Ladies Pod. We post about what we're going to be reading next, kind of updates on where we are in the current book that we're reading. And if you have any questions, send them to literaryladiespod@gmail.com. Send us your book suggestions. We'll add them to our list if we haven't already read them, I guess.
Yep. And on the Instagram account, Melanie posts a ton of like fun memes and pictures, and it's super great. So go follow us on there.
Yeah, I've been enjoying posting the little reading memes. I think that they're funny.
They are so funny. I really have enjoyed them as well.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for listening. If you made it through this entire episode with us, we appreciate it. So yeah, like I said, next book, You Know Me Well by Nina LaCour and David Levithan. So read it with us, listen to our next podcast. If you haven't read this book that we talked about today, read that one. Pause it now, read the book, listen to this episode after you read it so you don't get any spoilers, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.